Stephen Limbaugh here with some tips for making creative sounds with Vienna Symphonic Library's brand new Synchron Player stretch function. Let's have a listen. This piece is called Vampire Squid and would hypothetically come right before a fast-paced action cue of some sort. Let's begin with Capricorn 1, the underwater sound. Started with the String is King preset and chose a riff that when slowed down gives me a pulsing pad feel. And because in the extreme tempos of time stretching, the reverb from the mics is also stretched out, giving it this underwater feel to my ears. Sometimes you get a bit of fuzz or pop at the beginning or end of these extreme stretches, so integrating a little attack and release helps mask that a bit. I also added the stretch factor to help tame some of the tail when the piano and lithophone comes in without having to mess with the volume of the patch or the reverb fader. Lastly, for this patch, I tinkered with the exact slowness of the BPM to make it feel like these waves sound like they're falling into each other. And honestly, that just took a lot of listening and making small moves until it sounded right. The Black Eye patches are not altered too much. Just some timing for the scale riff on Black Eye 2. And Black Eye 1, I wanted to mainly have that pianissimo cluster hovering around above this transition section. There's some automation here and there on the room mix fader, and as you can see, I've got an extreme EQ setting that's zeroed in on some frequency I thought matched the other stuff going on. I'll solo that. I didn't want a normal sounding piano for this, but something odd that blends well with the lithophone. So I've got the timbre shift all the way down, and during that tremolo passage, I automated the mics a bit to create some movement in the overall sound perspective of the piano. Check the runtime delay on each of these mics. By itself, I actually think it sounds pretty bad, but it works with the track for some reason. In the spirit of making real instruments sound not real, this lithophone part is designed to work in conjunction with that piano as sort of an organic pad. So that calls for soft mallets on the roll patch, but with the attack and release engaged, and the part played more like a keyboard rather than a couple of percussionists holding 8 mallets. No time stretching until later when two things happen. One, a parameter turning on the EQ in the Synchron player, and two, the patch changes to this needle FX, which is stretched very slow. Note the top knob is also increasing the tempo, Increasing the slot source BPM while decreasing the slot target BPM is how you can render extreme results. Now, this transition, which consists of low note tail from the piano and lithophone, a couple of smart hits, this reverse sounding thing, and that high black eye 1 thing I explained earlier. Listen to the low notes, how they taper down until you get that sub boom from the smart hits. I think it is really important to think about the ends of your notes. What are they doing? Imagine if all this stuff hung over too long. It would conflict with the sub boom. If it was too short, it might feel empty. So the lithophone fades first, and musically, because of the increased release parameter, then the piano is simply holding down the sustain pedal until the smart hit hits its peak, and the sub boom comes in, where the pianist just lifts his foot off the sustain pedal. Now this reverse thing. Started with the fast repetitions patch and slowed it way down. In fact, this is basically the max you can go. Again, increase the attack, only this time I reduced the release to have sort of a cut and get that reverse type sound. But check this out. Hear what's happening there? It sounds like the sound is getting closer to you, kind of whizzing towards you. That automation is tied to the close mics and the room mix fader. Obviously, as it gets closer, the room mix goes down and the close mics come up. To make this effect more obvious, I'm using the VSL Reverb wet-dry mix and some panning automation and EQ. The EQ really helps the sound feel like it's rushing towards you. The FX string patch doesn't involve any time stretching. It's basically a crossfade between these three techniques, some filter sweeps, and auto gain on these mics to give it some rhythm. Matches nice with the cello line. Almost as if the auto gain is sort of a fake bowing or something. Lastly, we zero in on the Synchron Percussion 1 tambourine. Key here is the switch between the two types of tambourines, especially when the accelerando happens. So first off, getting the right feel for this was a little more detailed than just turning on the stretch mode and making it half the speed of the tempo. I had to speed up the slot source BPM to make the Synchron player think that the particular sample is originally faster than it is. I'd suggest playing with this yourself to get a handle on how this behaves. In the Performance tab, I automate the stretch factor. Now, if that doesn't exist already in your Performance tab, here's how you get that new fader. Go to the Control tab, then click on this little plus sign, scroll down until you find the value you are looking for and assign CC to it or whatever. Then go back to the Performance tab, hit this plus sign. You'll see it now. So check the tambourine part with the stretch factor automation. That's all for now. Thank you very much.